Hey everybody, welcome to Yankee and the Canuck. We're trying to get everybody on board. So the people that are joining us, say, uh, we're being attacked by terrorists. It's probably Iran. We'll try to get them in, and that's all fine. A couple of things we want to talk about. See, now they're texting me in the background. Oh, they got their new link. Ah, they got their new link. We're gonna talk about a bunch of good stuff. Uh, Look, now I'm reading the text. You guys are just retarded. Gmail got a new link. Is it the? Okay, you guys are funny. We'll bring you on. We'll bring you on board. It is what it is. But we're gonna do this. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna have a lot of fun. We are absolutely gonna talk about the Canadian elections. Uh, Listen, it's fun. We'll get Edward up here. Maybe we'll get Kess in here. We don't know. Lots of good stuff coming up. Looks like at least Edward's coming in. We got
Are we
that.
live?
Yeah, oh, we're totally live. We're already live. I opened it up. So yeah, good times. Look, the 100-day Trump rally. Did you get to watch it at all? Any of it, Paul?
No, I did not. No.
There- It was just like any other Trump rally. It was awesome, and he hit all the hits, just like you would expect if you went to a rock concert. Incredible.
Awesome.
Neat
Yeah,
job.
Tanya recorded it. We're going to watch it tonight.
He's just banging them out. It was awesome. And it made you feel just like the 16 rallies, the 20 rallies, the 2024 rallies. He even said, he's like, I think I've done like 940 of these things, which he has. And you and I have probably watched most of them. They're incredible. He explains his policies way better at a rally than he does from the Oval Office.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Edward, are you back?
Yes,
Was it
hey,
a
what
good
happened?
turnout, Sean?
Yeah. Packed house, packed house. I don't know what that thing held, but it was a college a facility, multifunction sports facility, several thousand, but it was packed. People started showing up at 9 a.m. Really good stuff.
I,
Very similar to what normal Trump rallies would be. People showed
Yeah.
up in the morning and just stayed in line to get a chance to see the Orange King, right?
it was something to see. He was funny. He's still funny. I love those.
He is funny. It's hilarious. Dude, I got an issue with Paulie Vare. I
Oh
really
no,
want to start
yes,
talking to you about
yeah,
what
ah,
happened in Canada last night. This is some
yeah.
bullshit.
We're all saying the same thing. What happened? We have. But I know what happened. But that liberal cheat is alive and well. I mean, you guys went through that. You know what I'm talking about. It's still happening. I can't believe what they pulled off. It was so close between the two parties. And then they stopped the counting, which was already finished at 12 o'clock at night, anyways. We knew where everything pretty much was. And they were slow counting, the results in some of the places. I thought, well, that should be done already. It's not that big of a writing. So they started counting this morning again, and of course the liberals are getting more seats, and the conservatives are getting less seats by 500 votes to 1,000 votes, and then finish off with 2,000 votes because they have all these mystery ballots coming in. Come on, I mean, this is just incredible. The same thing that happened in the states back in what that was 2020, I guess, when Biden did that. Well, should we say, voter interference, or just want to call it what it was and just a steal? It was a steal.
Well, but
We all know it.
but I got issues. I get super big issues with this election, and I totally am in. I'm on board. I believe that the election was rigged. I'll go ahead and say that publicly. But
Yeah.
Paulie Bear, when he started his war with Trump over "you're not going to tear up," he became identical to the Progressive Party, the Carney.
Well, yeah, I know.
He
And
did. So
yeah,
why would a conservative voter even bother to show up?
Right.
you know,
The guy's a
I
carnival barker.
yeah, true. You know what? I don't get why that was the plan when conservatives have always gotten along well with conservatives around the world. I remember a time, gentlemen, when we had Margaret Thatcher. You remember the Iron Lady from Great Britain, and
Hmm?
Ronald Reagan and Brian Mulroney, all three conservatives, all in power at the same time, and we took on United Nations, the whole world. We stood apart from everybody, and we were rocking back in those days. We rolled back the
Oh yeah.
communism, rolled back the seek the public service, or the I guess the union jobs at the government level. We got everything pretty. And Ronald Reagan's famous line about "You air traffic controllers, get back to work tomorrow, Monday morning, or all fired." Remember that? So we had everything under
Yeah.
control. We weren't being bossed around by these libtards like we are today. And now, for some reason, Pierre thinks, oh, we'll go against the grain this time. We'll go against Trump. I don't know why he did that. And besides that, what could be so bad about being good friends with Trump? I don't get it. That it doesn't. So, and I don't buy the thing that everybody's saying that Trump, messed up the election here. That's just an excuse for the older, selfish people to vote socialism with a clear conscience by using Trump as their scapegoat, thinking, "Wow, Orange Man bad. That's why I voted for the same, communist stuff we just got out of. I'm going to go right back in as long as, yeah, come on. You just didn't want your last 10 years on earth, you didn't want to have wrecked by your comfort living. You want things to go, and that's still not going to happen anyways, but they're stupid. So, there's no talking to them. So I could go on and on about that one, but we're not going
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
to
whoa.
time for it. But
I'm
yeah,
gonna look for it. Hold on.
which part are you looking for?
Who
The,
I vote.
Well,
the
no, no. This was CNN. A
oh,
Canadian
another.
voter. Hold on. It's only 15 seconds.
All right. Another credible
I
newscast like
think
ours.
who I voted for would be the best to take care of Trump, because Trump is, I'm sorry to say, an ass, and he shouldn't even be president of the United States. But because he is, we need a strong person so that we could stand strong.
So what we got to look at
I
here
think he voted
is
for.
is the boomers of the West, not just Canada, but boomers of the West who forgot that they fought off and defeated socialism in World War II and communism both in World War II. But then they got to the 1960s and we're just like, Vietnam.
Yeah, that's true. That's exactly what happened.
We gotta fight the capital, and they're still there. And so what I played audio from a video. Somebody just right being asked, why did you vote in Canada for Carney? I'm voting against Trump. Here's the issue. Here's the issue, Edward. Why are you voting against Trump? He doesn't run your country. He
You
doesn't.
know what? I
What the
know.
fuck? What the fuck is
I
Carney
know.
or Polyev gonna do to Trump? Nothing.
No.
This is a huge problem for the West
You know,
outside of the United States.
I think that because people are so unaware that we're dictated to by United Nations, the WEF, all our news feeds, everything we get comes from that area, that Trump is a standalone guy now. America is the last free standing nation on earth, the last one. Now that we're taken out, and I'm going to say that now, we're taken out now. We've been overcome by socialism, soon to be communist. You know what? America's the last guy standing, the last man left. And it doesn't
Totally
look
agree.
good for us. Did you get all that? Or did I
I
get a
totally agree. I
yeah,
totally
yeah.
agree.
So, with America looking like all alone now in the world, he would look like, or they would look like the bad guys. When in fact, we were with America. We were the West still. Now we have to make that distinction that maybe we're not the West after all. Maybe the socialist, and I don't mean all boomers, because there's a dividing line. There's two different distinct boomers. There's the late ones that think, well, because they're around the wars too, they think a little different and they were trained differently than what the latter boomers were. The last 5 to 7 years, they think a little different because they were brought up different again. But you know what? It's not going to be safe for them. They think they're going to be all so safe from it all because they have, gone against America or Trump, and they're not. They voted for socialism, and it's going to get rough. They want to take away their houses already with this equity fairness tax. Where they're going to take any profit they have or equity in their houses and just government's just going to take it. So how they think that's going to be a good thing for them, how they're going to think they're going to survive, don't know. But this is the idiocy of these people. They don't know enough. They listen to too many and too much of the United Nations broadcasts or WEF. And they take that stuff for gospel without looking out and thinking, hey, maybe there's other information besides CNN and CBC, which is a state-run broadcasting communist news network here in Canada that we all pay for to give us the propaganda that we don't need. But that's what we're getting spoon-fed. And like I said a long time ago, that Russian woman I was talking to, when I asked her, she's been in Canada for about 10 years, says, oh, how do you like it? She's, oh, it's the same as Russia. Nigga, what do you mean it's the same as Russia? Well, it is. It's the same. Everything's the same here as it is there. There's, state-run healthcare, state-run universities and schooling and blah, 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 on and on she went. He says, only one difference. I said, what's that? When the media was talking to us in Russia, we knew they were lying to us. Canada hasn't figured that out yet. And there it is. Boom. That's exactly what's going on today. That's what's going on with the boomers today. They haven't figured that out yet. They're still listening to the CBCs like it's gospel. And this is the problem with our country. And until these people start turning off their TVs, we're not going to have another COVID. We're not going to have it. We're just going to live normal lives. But they haven't figured it out. And that's what bothers so many people. My generation and younger, we all see that, but they don't. And if you look at the news networks today, young kids don't listen to broadcast news. They're on the internet because that's
No,
what's
not
really
at
going
all.
on out
Yeah,
there. Yeah, that's
yeah.
reality to
But
them. Their
Edward,
reality.
are there any independent or
No.
any independent news run agencies up there that
Yeah, there is
try
one.
to?
Yeah,
Is there?
one. That's it. Yeah, and it came off of the mainstream. Rebel News is the name of it, with Ezra
Okay.
Laurent. You've heard of him. So
Yeah.
Rebel News is the only one left, last one standing, because I think it was pretty much, well, there's a few other independents now starting to join in, but they still get kicked out of any scrum or any news media conferences. They still try to kick them out because they don't want them to have a dissenting view or different opinions of what's going on. So they don't get very far, obviously. But yeah, that's all we have up here. So no one knows what's going on, and I don't think they really
Well,
care.
one of the other things is that so Mark Zuckerberg years ago agreed with Canada's prime minister at the time, and he was totally in, right? And he was banning content and blocking things, and this goes back to like with the trucker protest, and Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook or Meta was
Yeah,
absolutely not allowing this content to be displayed, and it's a listen. Twitter's a big place. Meta is even bigger.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
You know, guys, that's why I stepped into mega missions years ago, because we weren't getting the news up here. Remember me telling you that, Sean Paul?
yeah.
Why mega missions are so important, that we all talk about what's going on, and as we used to joke about, which nation's going to hit the bottom first, because it was a real race to the bottom then, and we used to laugh about, now that we got Biden out of the way, and Trump's back in. And I thought for sure we were out of the woods when this election was going to come up. And we still may have another one. I don't know how this is going to work out with this, government now. I don't know. We could have another one coming up in the fall, in October, the way we're supposed to look, anyways. But I'll have to wait and see how this pans out. But I hope, but I can't see it, because of all the other revelations that have been taught to us throughout the years. I can't see this getting better. It's going to get progressively worse. You know it
Let
as
me
well as I
let me
do, gentlemen.
so let me ask you a question. So America was very very close to falling to what Canada has fallen to, right? If Kamala or Biden would have it would have been the fall of the West. So thank God we got one more cycle with Trump. What does it look like? And I have some thoughts here. What does it look like for Canada? And does Canada start to parsec themselves out as far as provinces and go, hey, listen, we want to, we actually just want to leave the Canadian government and become an American territory. So like Alberta or
Well,
something.
yeah, you know
Alberta.
what?
Yeah.
Yep. And that is happening now, where they said they're leaving Confederation. They're already, I think Danielle Smith said, they have now got from 600,000 signatures down to 177,000 signatures needed to become a standalone independent state. So I think they're working on that right now. And I think a lot of other ones are going to follow suit, because we can't beat I don't know how to put this diplomatically, but you can't beat the stupidity of the. And let's face it, we grew and went so far, so fast as a nation, both of us. Look what we've all had to overcome in Canada, being sucked into the United Nations with the metric system. We don't trade with Europe. We went through this before. Our biggest trading partner is the States. Why did we go metric? That's just another Trudeau thing to get us into the, United Nations, European Union type of thing. We didn't even trade with them. So that was just another step forward in the 70s to get us into more of a European. Well, not even like Europe, but anyways, that's just me as a Canadian. But yeah, I'd rather be the West. We're so Americanized, we can't go back to that idiocy over there, anyways, because well, we've just we've been with America so long. There's just no separation already anymore. We're almost identical. But anyways, then we went to, of course, all the other changes we had to go through, and then computers hit, and then the changes from there, and where we find ourselves today. The older generations never kept up. They still want to have the spoon-fed news, so you turn the TV on, click, and you just listen to what they're broadcasting or bewitching you with this news, and you just give your mind
Whoa,
over,
whoa,
and
whoa,
that's
whoa,
that.
whoa, 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 time out there. Because
Well,
the thing I sent you was when we looked at the breakdown of voters in Canada, it was the plus 60 crowd. And they were choosing not
I
to
know.
help Canada. They fucking hate Trump. They absolutely hate Trump. And they voted accordingly. So when you start to like break all this down, Edward, the boomer generation, hi Paul, are eventually going to time out, right? They are, but they were like this one. They're like, dude, I'm gonna show up in full force, and I'm gonna make sure this happens. And I believe it's the same way in America with the boomers that are doing shit to Tesla, doing shit to everybody, leaking their vine. They're just still living out their 1960s protest days. They think
100%, dude. Yep.
you want to pick up there, Paul.
No,
Paul,
yeah, I'm just going to agree with you, because that's exactly what we're seeing, and you get these. states like Alberta, that want to claim independence and stuff, we've been talking about that here in Texas for probably 100 years about doing, and the main issue has always been, what about defense? Or what are you going to do about defense? How are you going to protect your borders if you disassociate yourself with Canada? Are you going to have access to the Canadian military, or are you going to have to, start your own and do that? That's, in my view, that's the reason Texas is not independent and has not succeeded from the U.S., because we don't have the wherewithal to have defense.
Legally, the only state in the union, because they drafted that when they unionized, is the only state that actually can succeed legally. The other 49 states don't have a chance. We can get into that later. That's a really interesting case that Texas totally can succeed if they want to. No other state can.
I got to jump in though. One more thing I got to add to that, and that is the older generation doesn't realize how big of a global community they're involved in right now. They don't see, the big picture because they're not taught that, and they're not around enough of it. Uh, I don't even know how to word that, again, diplomatically without calling them out to be dum-dums, because it's not really their fault. They're not into computers. They're not going to know how to work them. They're not going to follow the independent news sources that we all get. They just listen to mainstream and they take them for their word. They don't realize we're in a much bigger struggle than that. And I don't think anybody's going to be able to sit down and talk to them where it makes sense that,
But
this big whole global economy, this global society that we're trying to be a member of,
look,
but we're not, they want us to
I,
be, they're
yeah,
not going to understand that.
well,
And so they
but
don't think the same way we do.
but hold on. So they're aging themselves out. Same as America. What are you guys doing to whether it's I don't know, TikTok or freaking Facebook? I don't Facebook. To explain this to the young voters who chose not to vote in this election, because that's the big issue right here. The young voters, the 18 to 24 group, that's
Right.
super
Actually,
important.
yeah. You know what? A lot of them did vote this time, so I can't blame or fault them. Again, it's the older ones trying to protect what they have right now, and they're going to say what we've worked hard for all our lives can evaporate with this new, government, because Trump's just going to walk right in here in Canada, take all our natural resources, leave us with nothing,
Dude,
and then go
listen,
back. I'm thinking, you know what? We're not using our natural resources now. Everybody else is but us. I mean, we got China and Russia using our fishes and taking all our fish, closed all the canneries down because, well, if they got them right on the ships they're, fishing with, there's no need for our canneries. So they've got that going for them. Pulp and paper mills are all closed down because, again, we've offloaded down to other countries. We don't need that. So all our natural resources are being taken care of by foreigners already. Why are you worried about Trump being another one? I mean, that's just because they don't know enough. They're just too stupid to know what's going on in the country. And our libtard government's not going to tell you they actually did that to us Canadians either, because again, mum's the word and the
Right.
socialist commies. So yeah, there's that.
What's your chronologically? What's your largest voting bloc in Canada? Is it Boomers or is it?
Yeah, there's just too many
Yeah.
boomers that yeah, that's about
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
And we also have to consider something else you guys don't have that we have. 25% of our voting populace is government employed. Our government's exploded to be so big that a quarter of our voting populace is government employed. So, of course, they're going to vote for, well, the money. If they're not giving that up, they're not going to walk away from their
why
well
would
paid
you?
paying jobs where they're not doing anything. And I got an old joke, by the way. Do you know why civil servants look out the window first thing in the morning, so they don't have anything to do in the afternoon. And this is how good those jobs are, and what they're not giving up, and they're going to keep voting for the nothingness and the good money they have to do nothing. So that's why the liberals are hard to beat, and they know it. And that group knows it, and they're all the older ones we just talked about with those jobs. So yeah, good luck on that. And the other 25% we have to fight against are the ones that are relying on the government for their social assistance because, they have agoraphobia or some other illness they've concocted up, or some psychiatrist, whack job, psychologist that says, oh, you don't have to go to work, you can live off, society now, or the government. So you got another 25% of, well, even injured people too, that rely on the government. So of half the voting populace, we don't have a chance of kicking them out. And this is the problem where when you get socialist governments in, they pay you so that you do are just a bought off vote because you're living off them and that's what they want. I don't, but they do.
Well, no, 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 no. You need to go deeper on that because that's the actual truth of socialism, is that we're going to pay your way. And once we pay your way, obviously you're not going to vote against that because we're giving you food, we're giving you housing. With whatever little bit of money you have left over, you can pay for your
Uh,
Xbox account.
I know. And you know what? As so goes with every communist country. Once the money's gone, you're now
Mm.
enslaved to the government. You ain't going anywhere. I mean, you're locked in. People have this stupid thought that, oh, we'll just vote our way out of this. Once you get communist in, there is no more voting. There is no more fair elections. There is no more elections even. You're done. And I don't know why people think that, well, we'll just give it a try, and if we don't like him, we'll vote him out. No, you can't get them out. That's it. You can't even shoot your way out because they've taken all your guns now. Well, by the way, that's coming up with this carny, stupid government now
Well,
too.
all
And not
right. So
only that, huh?
I gotta ask a question. So, like, so the 1950s people through the 1970s, maybe 80s people of the West. So, I'm talking about Canada. I'm talking about America. I'm talking about Great Britain. When they fought off socialism from Russia, remember everybody's Russia, Russia bad. When we did that, that was a good thing, right? Why are they saying America is the socialist?
I don't get that. Do you understand why they would think that way, Paul? I mean, because you know what? What's the worst thing that America could ever do to even our country? It's going to make it 10 times better. Why they think it's a bad thing is beyond me. As a matter of fact, Carney is good friends with China and have been dealing with China, even the biggest meetings up to 2 weeks ago when he went there to make all these big agreements and everything. That's a big concern for if I were Trump, I'd be worried about that.
Paul, you got any thoughts there?
Paul, you would know that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's exactly the way it goes. It's still, even after all these years, it's still that post Cold War mindset. It really is. It's just USSR bad, even though it's Russia now and all that. And it, there's just no way out of it. You just can't. This is one of those hearts and minds things that you're just not going to win. It's like Vietnam. You're just not going to
No,
win the hearts and minds.
and what's more to that is that China's got some real problems going on right now that people don't see, they don't hear about. You might, guys might, with the American News Network, but it's falling apart too, and it's not being publicized by the media either. A, because they don't want us to hear, they just don't know about it. I don't know, but they should, because if I know, everybody else should. And there's even a couple women on, even one on X, even come to think of it, that does. Tell exactly what's going on, the plans that they have. I'm talking to CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, and what they're planning on doing if anything happens with these tariffs. Like, China taking $1 trillion of American bonds right away and taking them back to China. All these other plans they got if anything were to happen. So because they're in deep trouble, financial trouble as well, and no one even knows that. They think China is leading. No, that's not true. They're more in debt than everybody else, but no one knows that. In real estate bubble, if you want to
Right.
talk about bubbles, theirs is bigger than anybody else's in the world. We
Yep.
thought ours was bad, and it is bad. I'm not saying it's not, but China's is much worse than ours.
Hold on. No, that's interesting because they're very far in debt. But even Elon posted or reposted something. They have the biggest GDP on the planet, bigger than America. It was like no, no,
Yeah,
no.
only
I get
because
it. What? Why is that? Because they sell shit to Americans
yeah, because of
through
America. If it wasn't for America,
Timu, through
yeah.
Amazon, through whatever. They sell shit to Americans. And so they have the biggest GDP on the planet. You could stop that.
Oh yeah, yeah,
People
and
could stop buying Adidas. People could stop buying. And here's what, like, people don't, like, Trump, when he does a rally, he explains it way better than when he's in the Oval Office. The whole point of these tariffs is not necessarily to bring money in. It's you're not doing fair trade deals. So Germany, we buy all kinds of BMWs, we buy all kinds of Volkswagens, but you won't let us sell Ford F-150 series, the Ford series, the best-selling truck in the world, but you won't let us sell them there. This is where it comes. China too.
I know, I
China,
know.
if China would let us sell them there, I guarantee you would see nothing but F-150s on the
Well, yeah,
streets of China.
that's true. We always made an inside joke about that because all you see is these, militants or guerrilla warfare people fighting and climbing in the back of a Toyota, and off to war. And we always just say, hey, Toyota is sponsoring. Sponsored by your terrorist automaker Toyota. We always used to laugh about that because that's all you see with these people. So yeah, there's that. There should be
Well,
more
Toyota's
competition.
Japanese, of course.
Yeah, but I'm still
You
saying
got,
that,
you got to
huh?
understand too that uh, the reason, not the reason, but one of the issues is some of these vehicles are so coveted by Europe, like the F-150 and the F-250. I've got a really close friend of mine that owns an equipment uh, business in Germany, right? And he does, he's got track loaders and you know front end load. He's a heavy equipment guy, and I invited him over to stay a long weekend with us out at the ranch and stuff. And we jumped in my Super Duty and we went all over town, going to dinner and stuff like that. And he was just beside himself. He's like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
the CEO of a big, a relatively large. I think they did 13 million last year in revenue. And he's like, dude, I want to drive out to my job site in a damn Super Duty. That's what I want in my life. And he was just. I mean, it was just ear to ear grins every time we'd go to dinner or we'd go somewhere out and stuff, and we got to ride the Super Duty. He was just like, this is the coolest shit ever. And I'm like, well,
Right?
what do you drive at, how do you get to the job site? I mean, what's your daily? And he's like, oh, it sucks. It's an Audi Q7. It's the worst vehicle ever made. But
Well, at least he didn't say Subaru, so good for him.
yeah.
Well, but
But
listen.
the other thing to understand too is Mercedes, BMW, and Audi in Germany, you can't get them with leather seats. Those are daily drivers
What?
with cloth and vinyl seats, and they're not luxury brands over there. Their Chevy Impalas and you know Ford Crown Vics, and that's the standing of the big three German automakers. The only one that sells relatively well is the VW Golf, but the number one selling car in Germany right now is the Ford Focus, and over there they make some cool ass Ford Focuses with you know pretty hot rodded out, and they make a station wagon and all that kind of they call them saloons and that kind of stuff. But the Germans are pissed that they don't have access to Tahoes and F-150s and
Well,
Escalades and
just to interrupt for a second, Paul, but we have to keep in mind how powerful the WEF is. Remember, when we went off the gold standard, 2 months later, guess what started up? The WEF. So we got the top 1,000 companies in the world all throwing in, I think the cost back then was like you had to make an annual sales of over $1 billion a year every year. And I think you had to chip in something like $1 billion to become a member. Today it's a lot more, but my point is they control and own everything. The top 1,000 companies own all the lumber mills. They own all the iron ore, gold, silver, any mine. Every
yeah.
WEF company owns all that. So they control the raw material prices for everybody already. And that's where I said, which is I find fascinating. There's one point that is this. Everybody in the world has cell phones. I used to watch during COVID how many people in South America, a poor country like that, how many people walk around with cell phones? In America, a cell phone costs $1,350 to buy one. Now you tell me all these people in China and South America had $1,350 American to buy a cell phone? They did
They
not.
don't.
How'd they
They
get
don't.
them? How'd they get them? Well, because the prices have been
They don't
altered.
have the same cell
Yeah,
phones. They don't
but
have
it
the
doesn't.
same cell phones.
They still.
Hold on, time out.
Yeah, you
They
know
don't.
what? The Japanese are better than ours. I've
Well,
learned that.
that's
So
fine.
yeah.
Like I don't have a problem with Japanese. I don't have a problem with Japan. We're just gonna keep up trade negotiations with them. The great look, Japan 3 decades ago made the decision to go. Hey, listen, we're gonna produce cars in America, and there's a lot of them. The Highlander, the Corolla, the Camry, the Tundra. It's not it's not a. It's not a full truck. It looks like a truck, but it's not a. It's just not built heavy enough as the F series truck. Now hold on. They did this
No, I
30
get you. I
years
get you
they
now.
did this 30 years ago because they saw where America was going to go. And nobody in Japan, and I want to be very clear about this. Japanese people do not like these type of vehicles. But
Not at all.
Toyota looked at this and goes, Americans love it. We're going to start making them in America for Americans. Very
Right.
brilliant move by Toyota.
Oh yeah. So
30 years ago.
they don't even have what you and I call an SUV. They don't even have that product in Japan. They don't. If you
Good.
have
They sound like them.
kind of any kind of a truck kind of a vehicle, it is an industrial vehicle. They're all white. They have wind up windows. They're very utilitarian, but there's nothing like an SUV. They have in other parts of Europe, Mitsubishi has the Pajero and like a two-door Land Cruiser and stuff like that. But when you ride around Europe, man, everybody's in a sedan, and if you're super extra special, you're in what they call a shooting brake, what we call a station wagon. So
Mhm.
they have the Mercedes wagon, the Audi wagon, and stuff. So
Yep.
that's you're high styling if you've got one of those things in Europe.
And so here's where Trump came in and said, hey, listen, you're not going to allow the F-150 series into your country. Pick it Germany, pick it, just start going, right? And he goes, that's bullshit because we buy all your Volkswagens. We buy all your your Audis. We buy all your BMWs. We buy your Rolls Royces. As a matter of fact, Rolls Royce, the only product they produce in the United States is jet engines. And they're brilliant jet engines. They really are awesome. But you won't let us sell F-150 series to the rest of the world?
Yeah,
Trump
yeah,
said, go fuck yourself.
yeah. The only one that has made any inroad, and they've struck a deal with the German government, is Stellantis. So all of the government vehicles are uh, Dodge Caravans, the Chrysler 300. Those are all the government vehicles, but that was because of a special deal that Trump the first time had made with Germany. And so, you see all these government guys driving around in black, uh,
K cars.
Dodge Caravans,
Oh, they're driving around by the Suburbans you're talking about.
Sorry?
No, not unless you're.
Suburbans. Suburban.
He,
A Stellantis vehicle.
he was saying they're not driving all around in Suburbans, and they're not. We just acknowledge that.
Oh
They're
no,
more.
they're in the minivans, and the other one is the Chrysler 300. Those are the two big government vehicles. Is
All
the
right.
Dodge minivan and the Chrysler 300.
Sponsored by United Nations, of course. But you got to have the UN symbol on that. It's just so fitting with the
Well,
Toyota little tiny Toyota pickup.
Yeah, and and the screwed up thing about that, Edward, is they had to come up with some kind of big ass kickback for them to agree to it.
Not a doubt in my mind. Yeah. Oh yeah. Not, not a doubt in my mind about that. It's so scammy and slippery. These people. Oh,
all right. Well, again,
I
the whole point of the tariffs, Trump explained it awfully. He just did. Was free trade. There's a
you
lot of
know
countries, especially Europe, who won't let us sell our product to them, but we buy their product, and that's what he was trying to stop or fix,
yeah, yeah.
right?
And
That's the whole point.
I wish he would go in more detail. And these rallies he holds,
Dude,
that'd be the ideal time, because he does such a great job at rallies of explaining things, and it's funny as
rewatch
well.
the rally he did tonight, the 100-day rally. He
I
lays
only see a
down a
couple clips.
lot of truth.
Does he? Yeah, I got to watch that. I only got to see a few clips. Yeah, at the rallies, he's not only entertaining and funny, but he does a good job of expounding all these issues that we're clamoring. Well, not us, the media, has made us believe what they think we should know to be the truth. And then Trump comes by and says, no, this is what's good. I mean, opens a few eyes, raises some eyebrows, and pretty soon we're on a whole damn new page. So yeah, good for him. We should be more of those, just in that style for education purposes, if not for anything else. So yeah, I love
It
that guy.
is. It is, and you're right. Hey, so all right, we got totally hosed by the hosers in Canada. Where do we go next? Because I don't know enough about the election system, the cycle. How do we get Canada back to a conservative nation?
I don't know that. You know what? And this is my whole. And I don't know if I have a bone to pick with Trump or not on this because he knows all our policies today are driven by United Nations or the WEF, which is just a branch of UN, and he knows that it's not us he has to deal with or bargain with; it's United Nations. And I don't know if that was the very first thing that when he talked to Trudeau all those months ago, about and it was basically about tariffs if he wasn't just laying it all out saying, hey, I realize that United Nations is basically driving the socialist agenda there and you're helping them. I don't know if that was
Mm.
his way of, kind of letting us all know
Well,
that,
all
or if
right.
he didn't know.
I think Trump knows more than most. So, do
Me
you
too.
think this was his way of when he said, Canada is going to become the 51st state? This was his way of making it happen by having you go so far left that through voting that maybe you would look at like Alberta's separatist movement, and
Well,
we'd start to take and put provinces into territories.
I have to say that because we've been driven so far left, we have that great divide here, like America does. We're so, even after last night's election, when they were finished, and I don't care what anybody says, you didn't need to count more votes today and start back. We already knew it was just 2 seats separating the left and the right, and then the next day, come on, people. But you know what?
What do you mean by seats? We don't know
Well,
in America. What's that mean?
Yeah, I don't know what that means. Yeah.
oh, well, in your terms, then that would be your office.
Lost, yeah.
I don't know how to describe or explain
What do you mean two
when
seats?
one incumbent wins over another one,
Whoa,
he
whoa,
gets
whoa,
a
whoa, whoa, whoa!
seat
Wait,
in
wait,
the
wait, wait.
parliament.
All right, let's go back to what it means to win an election in Canada. You don't vote
Okay,
for the person, right?
no, the party
You
decides
vote for the
who the
party.
yeah the party decides who the prime minister is going to be. You guys vote for your president, and the party comes with him. We vote for the party, and then the party decides who the prime minister is going to be. It's a little bit strange how it is that way, but it is.
Well,
It's a dumb system.
it's very similar to a lot of other countries, specifically Israel, right?
Well, yeah, well, it's identical to Australia. Australia and us are
Australia.
identical as far as laws go, parliament goes. We're identical. There is no difference
Well,
between
it
Australia
is.
and Canada, except that Canada's more Americanized. I mean, that's the difference. The biggest difference is we're so Americanized and
All right.
Australia's
So
not.
it's very identical. Then I'm listening to you, to the Crown, and how all of
Oh,
the
yeah.
European countries vote, as opposed to America, who will actually vote for a specific candidate.
Yes, and I guess when I talk about getting a seat, we talk about the electoral college, the electorate, how that, is a thing. And there's so many seats, I don't know, ridings. You call them, what do you call those? I don't even know what you call them now. It escapes me in America. We call them ridings or seats. You call them, can't remember the word for it now.
Electorates. Electorates.
I guess, yeah. No, not really, but okay. Still can't figure the word. But anyways, that's what I mean by that. So I have to think on that. As soon as I walk away from this program show, I'll remember everything, but I just can't right now. As soon as I leave
Sure.
the driveway, I'm good. I remember everything. But not now. So yeah,
So
I'll have to think on that.
who runs each territory, Edward? I mean,
Who
who
runs what?
is there? Like we have governors. Who's the head of a territory?
Uh, yeah, a territory. We don't call them.
Province.
Yeah, that would be you're talking a state or a territory because you have governors, you have, well, we have
Oh, you
senators
do
as
have
well.
governors. Yeah.
No, we have senators. Governors, we have premiers. So a
Premiers.
premier would be what a governor is to you. We have senators, which I have no idea why we even really have senators. We don't really need them the way this communistic game is
So
going on, but we
you have
do.
a premier for British Columbia. You have a premier for Alberta. You have a premier that they run those, day to day operations in those provinces.
Yeah. So, like your state, so yeah, you have governors, that dictate what goes on in the state. That same thing as a premier, because a governor and a premier, the same person, just different titles. They do the same function, have the same purpose, I should say. So yeah, they're the same as far as that goes. I just have to think of the correct word now for writing, and I can't think of it right now. I don't know why. It just escapes me. I think the older I get, the more mentally retarded I get, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, but you're not. But you're not.
I I don't know how much farther you want to go into this election thing and how we're going to come back out of it, because we're really not at this point. There's too
Well,
much
I
that we
guess
have to kind of wait and see over the next month.
I
I don't know.
guess you're not going to come out of it. I think did Trump play this perfectly to like he said, you should be the 51st state. And like dude, I already played a clip. It's really bizarre that most Canadian voters were voting against Trump. That makes no sense for Canadians. We must fight Trump. So,
Yeah, that was
Is
what.
Trump actually
Yeah.
going to win this? And are we going to start to see provinces look to eliminate themselves from the Canadian government and ask to be territories?
Well,
Honest
yeah, a
question.
lot of them already, like Alberta already wants to get out of the Confederation. Yeah, no. Confederation, I think, is on the line here, whereas some provinces already want to leave Confederation, the Confederate, and yeah, go be independent or taken in by the states, being a territory to begin with. Even I don't know. That depends on how the states work all of that, and Trump, of course. So I don't know how all that's going to go, but I know they have to be separate and apart first, so they have to make that move, sign the petitions, back out of Confederacy, and just stand alone. And then I'm sure America would defend them rather than have them handed over to China or the European Union or something like that. I'm sure the states, and they would be almost a marriage made in heaven right there for them to get together rather than some foreign entity like Russia, China, or we can go on down the list. You know what I mean by United.
I mean, Russia totally wants to be involved. China totally wants to be. But that's just silly talk. It's silly talk.
I don't know why the liberals would rather make deals with China than America. It just amazes me how Carney is so
Yeah.
far deep into China, but yet now America. It just amazes me how come they're so. And I guess that's a United Nations thing, anyways, or a WEF thing that they're all together on. Whereas they're trying to leave America out of it, and I'm really darn ticked off about that whole thing. Really ticked off. I got to tell you, we've always been, well, not American, but so part of America. Like we've always just been there. I don't even know how to describe that. We've just been so, like I say, Americanized. We
World
don't
War
talk like
II,
Australians. We don't even have an
Vietnam.
accent. Yes,
I'm looking at
we've always been
I'm
together.
looking at the Middle
Yeah,
East.
you name
The
it.
You've
Middle
always,
East. Yeah.
yeah. You guys were
Yeah,
flying
and
right
here we are going
alongside of
against the
us.
states. I don't know.
Oh yeah. The Canadian Special Forces in the Middle East, all six of them were very helpful. During the conflicts over there.
And we just always, just always been together. And why all of a sudden now we have to divide up just because they're trying to throw some orange man bad tactic, at the Canadian old timers?
But
Is a,
that's all.
it's to
Like
me that's abuse. I mean, to
so,
abuse the people by missing.
what I look at, Edward, is that's what it is. Is they're just orange man bad.
Yeah, no matter what.
What?
Yes, yeah.
I know. You think that we'd be wised up to the whole thing by now after what we've been through for the last, say, almost 10 years now. But no, they still sit in that state of, I don't know, CNN, CBC, retardation, network news. I don't know how they're going to get away from that. They're so tied to it. I don't know why, but that's what we got to work with. And and inform. And I don't know who's going to inform them, but
Well,
it's a lot of.
let me ask you fellas this: how do we defeat socialism with all they have is Orange Man bad, but it's very effective, and they keep getting people on their side who hate the Orange Man? How do we defeat that socialism?
Well, according to history, and you're not going to like my answer. Paul may agree with me here because he's going to probably say the same thing as I'm going to, but you can't do it with a paper ballot. A paper ballot means nothing. Bullets. The only way you defeat socialism is through bullets. Sorry, a paper ballot ain't going to do it.
Okay.
So that's just how it's been through history, and I can't see it change. Paul, do you not think the same way? Yeah, that's just we've had that through history. There's just no other way. Every revolution has always been fought with not paper ballots because they mean nothing. Pretty much, they're always lying about them anyways. But a bullet doesn't lie; it hits its target, and you've been hit, but not with a
Yeah.
paper ballot. That just, doesn't go anywhere. It just falls on deaf ears. Well, proof in point, case in point, I should
And
say.
and
Last night.
the other part of it that makes it so hard is that they just like I heard AOC today. They were interviewing as she walked down the hallway and stuff. And all she could say was, this administration is going to cut Medicaid. This administration is going to cut Medicare. This administration is going to get rid of Social Security with no evidence. No, there's
Mm-hmm.
not one thing. There's not one thing. I defy you to point to one thing that shores up that. But
Yeah.
you got
Yeah.
Lester Holt on NBC saying AOC says, you know, and I gotta say, in the states, there's a bunch of boomers that love them some Lester Holt,
Oh
and
yeah.
they watch NBC nightly news, and that's it. That's the end all be all.
That's the same thing they talk of. The Liberal Party's been spreading up here the same
I don't know.
misinformation. Same.
I don't know how you. I don't know how you call them out. I don't know how you make them
Right here.
accountable.
Right here. That's how you call them out. You call them out right here on the podcast.
Well, yeah, more people got to stand up and speak out, I think, and stand out as far as fighting back, or at least, if not that, just standing on, what you think to be true instead of this nonsense that they're propagating to the public, to all of us. And we have to start, talking back and say, wait a second, no, that's not even close to reality, and and start talking and get the word out there. I believe that's very true.
There, fellas, we hit an hour. We got to close it out. Final
All right, my
thought.
brothers.
Well, hold on. Final thoughts. I'll give Edward and I'll give Paul final thoughts.
Final thoughts I gotta say is I don't know how we're coming back from this. I don't know. I think the country will fall apart. I think, and I forget the guy's name now. Victor Hansen. What was his name now?
Victor
Oh
Davis
God,
Hansen.
Victor Davis Hansen. I think he put it well on the mistakes the country's made and why it's gotta come apart. It is coming apart. I think he's right. I don't think there's any coming back from this. So America's pretty much got to take control of the situation. That's my last word.
Hold on. So that's a good last word. My question will be do you think that because there's a lot of Canadians and there's a lot of stupid libtard Americans who are against us, do you think we're going to start to see a movement towards we want to be American from Canada?
Well, yeah, we already have that now happening in Alberta with the 51st and a couple other provinces, so it's already happening now. Yeah, definitely, very much so. Now, like I said, now Trump's going to have to, either go back on his word or say, hey, I was serious with what I said. So I don't know. That's his call, I guess. America's call, not just his.
America's already made the call. A lot of them said we don't want you, but
No,
we'll
true. And you
totally
know what?
take you.
I understand why too. You don't want to inherit another welfare state, and I've been saying that since day one. We've been talking about that at Mega Mission.
Another
You know,
California. We
yeah, you
don't
don't
want
want
another California. Yeah.
correct, and yeah.
That being said, if you have some other Canuck friends that want to do our next Yankee and the Canuck, let's bring them in. Paul, we got to get to Paul. Thoughts here?
Well, I'm a little bit of a disagreement with Edward, and I gotta say, year over year, time after time, these things tend to work themselves out, and I believe that is not as radical and is not as dire as we're talking about here. I think at the end of the day, everything's going to come together and mesh, and Canada, and the U.S. are going to have great relations. They're going to get the trade straightened out, and it's just going to work out. And
Mm,
you know, America's the number one force in the United States. Canada's probably 160th. They just don't have a dog in the fight. So they're they're either, like my dad used to say, if you don't get right, you're gonna get a left. And so I think that's what's going to happen with Canada. I truly believe, and Mexico. At the end of the day,
mm-hmm.
we're the big dogs in North America. Well, we're big dogs in all of Americas, and things are just going to work themselves out. I really believe that.
Well, I hope you're right in saying that, Paul. But I think Trump's
Mm.
got way too many things to worry about right now. Besides 40 million people, actually, there's 36 million, five illegals, and then the rest are all East Indians. So, you know what? Of the 36, 37 million of us, I think he's got more important things to worry about besides Canada
Damn.
right now. At least how I see things. So that's just
Damn, he's looking at it. He's looking at it hard. He
Yeah,
doesn't want to have to build a wall on our northern border. He doesn't.
but I
So
can
I
tell
would
you
say
one thing.
no.
I can tell you one thing. Canada does not have an aircraft carrier that can do a hard 3G turn and throw a tow truck and an F-18 off the deck
Hey,
willy nilly.
real quick, before we
have you
close
seen our
out,
rowboats?
before we close out, Michigan's airbase, right? He wants to put FA 15 EXs in there. And I was like, why don't you just revive the A10? Why are you doing an FA
The Warthog. I love
Eagle?
that.
Yeah, I love the Warhawk. Why
Yeah.
are you? Why does Trump want the FA Eagles E10 out of that base and not the A10s?
Yeah, that. So, in my view, based on my knowledge, it's apples and oranges, and somebody's got to tell him those two platforms are apples and oranges. The EA is not a close air support vehicle. The A10 is the preeminent close air support vehicle. Matter of fact, Argentina just built about 35, what I have to call a prop driven A10. It's
Mhm.
the fuselage, everything looks exactly like an A10, only it's a twin prop with Rolls Royce engines, Sean.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, eh, it's not jet. It's But that's what they use for their close air support, which lends credibility to that platform and how successful it could be.
I don't like it. So I really don't like it. I know we were supposed to close that, but like we're talking about close air support. Somebody I posted about this on X, and they're like, "Hey, how about the AH whatever 50 or what?" And I was like, listen, no, helicopters are not effective in this anymore. We're moving into the future. The the warthog, the bird should just be refurbished. That's the best close combat air support vehicle we have. I don't care about the
ever
Black
made.
Hawk. I just don't.
And I got to tell you, it can be done because you just look at the B 52.
Mm-hmm.
1958, the first B 52 came online, and they're still using them. They've re engined them with more efficient engines, but it's still a B 52. So you can do STCs, they call them, to do frame modifications and stuff, and keep that A10 uh, in use for, I mean,
The
till the
next
end
Oh
of
50
yeah,
time.
years.
yeah. And they can take some hits too. I mean, these are the armament on them. It could take a few hits and not go down. I mean, they're absolutely perfect for these scenario or the function or purpose of them.
And the argument was from this guy was, well, we have a Burt gun on the Blackhawk, and I said, but your Blackhawk's not fast enough. It just can't maintain the airspeed to stay away from people firing stupid shit at the sky.
And the loiter time, the the A10 has at least 60% more loiter time over the battle space than any whirly bird. It's just not
Yep.
even close. Those guys could stay on station 15, 20, 30, maybe 45 minutes. They got to go refuel. An A10 can hang out there all day and
Right.
just wait for instructions and just
Yeah,
rain hellfire and damnation down. You know, it's just, it's not even close.
Well, it's not even the Burt gun. I mean, that's incredible, the Burt gun. It's that they can carry armaments on the wings. You don't get that out of a Black Hawk. They don't have the
No,
speed. They just don't have the ability. So I listen, people who like Blackhawks, cool. That like we're done with that era. That we're done with the helicopter era. We're done with it. And like we're moving on to an era where we're gonna do stuff with drones. And I'm just gonna say sorry. The Blackhawk era is done. The only one that you would want a person in would be an A10. That's it.
and so I don't think it's. I agree that it's done in close air support, but it's not done for medical evacuation
Mm-hmm.
and moving troops quickly from point A to point B. That kind of thing. That would be its mission statement. It's not close air support. It's just not.
Yeah,
Because
I think that's it.
exactly for the reason you said, Sean, you go, so we get authorization to engage the cartels. You think the cartels aren't going to launch 555,000, man pad shoulder operated missiles at those helicopters? Yeah, they
Right?
are. and
And they
and it's
don't.
a lot harder to hit if you're doing 480 knots and you're dropping napalm on their ass in an A10.
That's exactly where it was going. Yeah, right. No, you can't. You just can't. You don't have the speed. Speed is important. And like if you look at a close combat, so the A10 is perfect. But if you're looking at speed being necessary, we've always had the speed. We've had different vehicles that would deliver the speed. Nobody can challenge us in speed, and I just think that's retarded. If you want to use a
Yeah,
Blackhawk as close combat support at this point, now that we're in 2025, because people have shit they can shoot at you now in a Blackhawk.
yeah. So So I just want to tell one anecdote before we go. So in 2019, the Air Force came out and said, "We want you guys to develop a close air support propeller driven aircraft." So I was working at L3 at the time, and I don't know if you guys know what an air tractor is, but it's the yellow crop duster plane.
Yep.
So they've weaponized the air tractor and been using them on CNTPO and the counter narcotics program in Colombia for probably 30 years. So L3 put their eggs in that basket, to strengthen the wing so that they could carry, more munitions, uh, put some. The bad part was you didn't have a GAU pointing out of the nose. It was
Yep.
something that you attached to the wing. So you had basically a machine gun that you attached to the wing, and then you had two other spots for tomahawks and blah blah blah. So Lockheed Martin took the T6 Trader, which any pilot that goes into the military flies a T6, which goes all the way back to World War II. It's a double cockpit, sliding canopy, you know, old ass airplane. They put a hot rod Pratt and Whitney engine in it, and uh, then there's a company out of Colorado. I can't remember their name, but they make what's called a Pilatus. The Pilatus was like a T6, and so we submitted these three things to the Air Force for close ground support,
Right.
and they went back to the A-10.
A10. I don't know why Trump said tonight we're going to go to the FAA Eagle 18 and not the A10.
FA-18 or FA-15?
I'm pretty sure it was FA 18.
So,
I
dude,
got
it's
issues
apples and
with that.
oranges. Yeah,
I'm
it's
pretty
apples and
sure.
oranges. So, the A-10 can fly 250 knots. An FA-18 cannot stay airborne at 250 knots.
Right.
It needs 300 plus to be going.
And I got issues with
That's
that. I don't know why they
yeah.
told his people told Trump that that's what we're going to do. Like, why are we getting rid of the A10 platform? Because the A10 platform, as long as we're going to be person to person combat, is the best aircraft to do it. And somebody told, like I told you, somebody told me, no, we've got the Blackhawk. And it's like, Blackhawks, they don't have the speed. Screw you. No.
You talk to any tier one Ford air controller, which is an Air Force guy that's seconded to Delta or SEALs or anything like that. When they call in a strike, they never call for whirlybirds. They always call for the A-10 every
Right.
single time without exception.
Right. And
That thing could loiter. You're talking loitering at 25,000 feet over the battle space, and the Ford air controller calls in a strike, and then in 90 seconds, you're on target and you're dumping waste. You are dumping hellfire and damnation down on that Latin long. You know what I mean? You can't
it,
do that with an 18. You can't do it with an F-15. You can't do it with a Pilates. You can't do it with an air tractor.
Trump said it was going to be F 15s, and I was like, "What? No, it's got to be the A10." So, listen, I'll do everything I can. I'll talk to people
You know
I
what?
know, and
We need a show just on this, Sean.
well, yeah, fuck it, let's do it tomorrow. But I will
Yeah,
talk to. I've got friends in DC. I'm
you
gonna
don't have
talk to
friends.
them.
Here's enough, friends.
And they can't.
Just got
I
us.
don't
That's
have.
it.
Actually, I don't have any friends, which is hilarious. Which is true. But I'm just gonna be like, hey, listen, no, do not. The A10 is the best close combat support vehicle we have. Let's just upgrade them. That's what I'm gonna say to my friends, and say, go tell your fucking president this.
Yeah, yeah.
Good speech for tomorrow night. Good show for
And
tomorrow
I got to
night.
tell you, the only thing that you could do it to an A10 that would be an upgrade is fuel delivery. Is is to make it so it can run not only on JP8, but it can run on vegetable oil, and it can run on
Yeah,
that kind of thing. That's the only improvement you can make to that thing, because it's just a badass.
it's a fucking air tank.
Yeah,
It literally is. Like
It can take
there's
abuse.
what, Edward?
I said it can take some abuse. It can take some hits.
Oh, it sure can. It absolutely can. All right, ladies. All right, so the A10. Let's. All right, I'll write that down. A10 tomorrow night on Orange Podcast Bad. Cool.
sounds good, brother. This has been fun tonight.
I love how everyone talks while we're closing the test. It's awesome. Hey, Edward, how you doing? Oh,
Nope.
he did.
I thought we were done already. I didn't know. I thought we were finished.
We are done. We're just talking through the song. You know what the best part about our podcast is? It's just the ending. It's always like everybody's always like, what? All right, closing it out.